just like that. That's brilliant, isn't it? Yes. Right, so thank you very much for having me. It's really lovely to be here. I hope you don't think I'm being rude when I say that I was just a teeny little bit disappointed with the food. I was sort of hoping we'd all have bacon sandwiches and vodka shots. That seemed like the way forward for me. And it's interesting, we had a brilliant conversation as I arrived about people's names and how many people have religious names, and I guess that's understandable. I do find it quite weird these days when people who are atheists give their children names with religious connotations. I met an atheist couple recently who had called their child Christian. And I had to say that I thought a much better choice would be Godfrey. And we've also been chatting at the table actually about creationism. And I guess I have a suggestion for dealing with creationism. I think the following. I think that anybody who doesn't believe in evolution should be given last year's flu jab. Seems like the way forward. So it's always strange to be here. I've just been on tour in Northern Ireland. And interestingly enough, before I left for Northern Ireland, everybody I knew on the UK comedy circuit started telling me what I shouldn't say in Northern Ireland to avoid offending the wrong sort of religious person by mentioning the wrong sort of religious thing. And it was very strange because I grew up in Suffolk at the time when there were troubles in Northern Ireland, and I remember asking my religious education teacher what the difference between a Protestant and a Catholic was, and she said that it was about transubstantiation, about whether bread turned into meat. And I really think that we should allow people to continue with sectarianism in their religion, provided they stick to the rules. So, you know, Rangers fans would be entitled to stand up during football matches and shout, "It's only a fucking wafer!" if they want to. But I love the idea of somehow it being... I love the idea that we might one day be waiting in the afterlife and we'll be stood around going, "See, told you, look, there's no God." If we go, "No, we'll be here in a minute, I'm sure it will." And going, "No, look, there's definitely no God. What has happened to God?" And the Catholics might go, "I think we've met him." Quite beautiful. But you know, this is when I was at school, and at school I had this RE teacher who was a born-again Christian, who was a very devout Christian, and she had this thing which she used to say all the time, that you might as well be religious, because if there is a God, you've bought a ticket to heaven. And I have a problem with this, because it's not really about a ticket to heaven, isn't it? At very best, it's a lottery ticket to heaven, because there's all these different religions and they all teach that everybody else isn't going to heaven. And I quite like the idea that might be queuing at the afterlife going, "Oh, what have you got?" "Oh, this one's going to work. I've got Zeus, king of the gods." "Oh, I'm really sorry, but more recently we've been up Mount Olympus. There's nothing there." "Oh no, I'm going to win it. What have you got?" "Amaterasu, Japanese sun goddess." Because as with comedy competitions, it's always nice to have a woman in the final. She's not going to win. Maybe some guy at the back really happy. "What have you got, mate? What have you got?" "Oh, definitely, I've got David Icke." Some of you may have missed out on David Icke. He used to be a sports commentator, and he showed up in a turquoise tracksuit and said he was the son of God. Every year he says something weird, doesn't he? He comes out and says something weird. A couple of years ago he said the royal family were lizard people. Which is wrong, it's David Cameron, isn't it? Now, those of you who do know me, probably know me. You might know me from all sorts of places, but you probably know me from a clip on the internet of me on the Big Questions, which is sort of what... I did not invent this word, or this title, but it has become widely known as the atheist bitch slap. And if you don't know it, please look it up. I won't repeat any of it. What I will say is that when you have clips like this on the internet that go viral, it has like over 1 million hits, people on the internet add their opinion. And I'm sure lots of you who express your opinions publicly, and all kudos to you for doing so, I'm sure lots of you get feedback on the internet. And I've noticed that nobody on the internet ever has the opinion, "I thought both sides made excellent points." That's not quite how the internet works. So I get all these amazing comments. believer than an intelligent non-believer. And I had to write back and say, good news. Recently on Twitter, I had a personal first, which I was really excited about. I was threatened with the rapture. And so I replied, as I thought I ought to, and said, I don't want to alarm you, but wasn't that supposed to happen last year? And this guy wrote back and said, no, the people who think that are insane. Which is beautiful. I also was having a debate about abortion recently, and somebody, obviously very angry, had written underneath, having an abortion is like being raped by the devil. Which is a weird thing to say, because I think even if you feel very strongly that you oppose abortion, you would have to say if there's one time that a woman ought to have one, my favourite thing anyone has ever written about me on the internet is this: has fat arms, so must be a lesbian. Because I don't think either of those things are real insults, I don't think either is true, but I love the idea there's a link. That somebody might one day say, Kate, do you mind me asking, are you a lesbian? And I'd say, well, I haven't started fancying women, but the arms are gone. And I want to say, all the people who have been saying serious things have made brilliant jokes, so I hope you will forgive me if I say one serious thing before I get back to funnies, before I wrap up. But I was thinking, as I say, when I was at school, I was taught very little. That my RE teacher was an evangelical Christian, so all of our religious education was always about Christianity and how it was definitely right. And so we were taught very, very little about Islam. And I was thinking about, over the years, where I've picked these things up. And there is one specific example that really terrified me, and which I really wanted to share with you. I was watching a documentary about the invasion of Iraq. And I'm against war, by the way, and I certainly was, thank you. I feel like we don't actually need to clap, because we're probably all in on that one. But yes, it's because we've been on the big questions so much. You people feel the need to applaud when I say something reasonable. It was about the invasion of Iraq and how difficult it was for people living under the American-British regime out in Iraq. And there was a piece of footage of a bunch of Iraqi guys travelling across Iraq in the back of a covered van. And they were complaining bitterly about the British and American presence in Iraq. And one of them said, it's terrible, we feel trapped in our own homes. We can't go anywhere. And then he said, we feel like women. And so yeah, I was like, dude, you are really not helping your corner here. Now, those of you who've seen the Atheist Bitch Chat clip, there's one thing you may not know. It's on this BBC show called The Big Questions, which is on a Sunday morning, and I know a lot of people here have been on it, let alone seen it. It's an hour of Nicky Campbell asking the big questions, which for some reason are all about religion. I think I could do it in about 1 minute. There's one question, isn't it? And the answer's no. When that series is off the air, there is another show which goes on instead called Sunday Morning Live. And it's a very similar show in that they have a discussion, usually about a semi-religious topic or a religious topic, with different people. But unlike in the big questions, everybody's in the same room. Whereas on Sunday Morning Live, everybody is at home on a webcam, and they just cut between the different webcams. And shortly after the incident of the Atheist Bitch Slap, they rang me up and said, would I like to go on Sunday Morning Live? And I said, yes, that's fine, and yes, I've got a webcam, and yes, that's great. What they wanted to discuss was the documentary that had been made for the BBC about the Prophet Muhammad, or as I like to call him, Muhammad. Because I think if you believe you can see the future, you have a mental illness. And I think it's very rude to describe people by their mental illness. If I came in and you said, oh look, Kate Smurthwaite's here, I'd be quite hurt. So they did this documentary, and as you may be aware, they decided not to show any images, because they didn't want to upset anybody by showing any images of Muhammad. And they asked me if I would go on TV and discuss this via webcam from home? And I said, sure. And then for some reason, they ran out of time, or there was a technical problem, or something happened, and somehow they never got to me. And I like to imagine that what happened was a discussion went on in the production office that went, seriously, you're going to ask Kate Smurthwaite to come on television live via webcam and discuss whether we should show images of Muhammad. Does anybody think she won't home an interview wearing a turban and a fake beard, shouting, what?